Hello. The Heart of Texas Foundation welcomes you to Deep in the Heart. Each week at this time, we focus on giving encouragement to everyone who is locked up somewhere in a Texas jail, prison, or penitentiary. Stay tuned.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to it is who's a humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord, yeah.
Hey, if you're locked up tonight, I invite you to settle down, put your stuff aside, and join me in a devotion just for the incarcerated. I'm Grove, and this comes to you from Deep in the Heart.
People get ready for the train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and board them. There's room for all of the love and lost to you, yeah.
Well, howdy. Welcome to our cabin on the creek. If you're listening in your car, your truck, your home, or in the free world, or in a prison in Texas or Louisiana, welcome to you. And if you're locked up in one of the 10 or so Texas prisons who can hear my voice tonight, we want to welcome you as well. We're here to share some devotional thoughts at the end of the week, and as always, Sunday marks the beginning of another. I want to say hello to all of you who might be listening in some of these prisons that hear the radio station and our program each Sunday night. Ellis Prison in Cleveland, guys in the PEP program up there, the PEP program, Darrington, and some of you men in the seminary, as well as those of you in the general population in Darrington, Hightower, Liberty County, Stiles, the federal prison at Beaumont, Gibb Lewis in Woodville, Pulaski, and even those on death row may be in the sound of our program tonight. Eastham. And did I fail to name your prison? Write me and tell me where you're listening from. Would you do that, my friend? I'll give you the address at the end of the program. And in the meantime, come on in. It's a little chilly to sit out on the porch of Rainbow Cabin tonight. So I thought we'd just come on into what we call the main room in the cabin here. And we'll sit back in the back of the room here by the back porch and the old French doors where we can look out on the creek tonight and the old hackberry tree. You can see it because I've got the floodlight on out there, so it shines down on the creek. And if we're lucky, we're going to see Miss Shelley, the raccoon, who comes up on the porch every night, and I'm not kidding, and she eats the cat food that we put out for her. Miss Shelley is nursing babies right now, and after she eats, she goes back down to the creek and stands in the creek. I shine my big halogen spotlight on her down there, and she stands in the creek to drink and to get wet again. She always comes up on the porch soaking wet in order to be able to wet the cat food in her paws as she eats. Some books have said that raccoons don't have salivary glands, and others disagree with that. I don't know for sure, but I do know she likes to have some water when she eats, and that's why people think that raccoons wash their food before they eat. It's really not a cleanliness thing, I think, as much as it is salivary. And so it's really cool to watch Miss Shelley come up and eat. And she's eating out of my hand right now, and I don't ever plan to pick her up. But I remember her true nature, of course. So she is a wild critter, but she has come to trust me enough to be able to jump up on the coffee table out there on the porch and eat along with the big old barn cat we have, Cloudy Dawn, who gets along quite well with Miss Shelley. Have a seat. I moved your rocking chair inside for tonight, and there's your coffee just like you like it. Man, it's nice to be toasty in here when it turns chilly, isn't it? Hope you have had a good Sunday and that you were able to worship with some friends at your church or chapel. We had a good time at church this morning, too. It's always good to be with with friends and with God's people, no matter where you are, to have something so deep and wonderful and meaningful in common as you do when you come together to read and study the Word of God. This weekend's been really busy for us at the Heart of Texas Foundation. And I hear Lawrence out there on the tractor going by here in the evening, so you may hear him out here as he passes by. That's really cool. It's been busy for us at the Heart of Texas Foundation. This weekend, we partnered with our friends at Forgiven Ministry and over 200 volunteers from here in the Houston area from at least 10 different churches. What did we do? We went into the Darrington Penitentiary for the first time in its history to hold a One Day with God children's or kids camp. And it's really a 2-day event, but the last day, the second day, Saturday, is the one day when we bring the children into the penitentiary. Did I say that? Yep. The children of inmates are brought into the penitentiary to play with their daddies. And there were about 40 guys that were part of the program. They applied to CO, and it takes about a year to put all this together of planning with volunteers and churches and pastors and lay people, men and women. And the men in the prison look so forward to the children coming. And, of course, the caregivers who take care of these children often have to drive a long way, driving to bring them to a central location, a church outside, where they're all gathered together. It's an incredible event, and I won't go into all the details that make up the event, but our bottom line is to do this for the children and the dads. And we work with the dads on Friday, all day Friday, getting them ready to be with their kids. And then on Saturday, the kids come in and the dads have gifts for them and presents. And we could never have done this without the support and encouragement of Senior Warden Mark Jones and his staff and Chaplain Charlotte Knapp, dear friends who support the work of God in that prison and allow things like this to bring a greater sense of harmony and peace inside those walls. And so we do about 6 events like this in Texas each year. And Forgiven Ministry out of North Carolina, it was founded by Scotty Barnes, a lady with a heart for children of inmates. She was one as a little girl. Her father spent many, many years in the federal prisons and ended up dying in one. And so when she grew up, she looked back over those years, and God gave her a vision for the One Day with God kids camps, and she does them in many states. And so we've been blessed to get to know Scotty and her staff in North Carolina. It's been a beautiful day at Rainbow Cabin. I hope that you have enjoyed your Sunday today. When I was up getting ready to go to church, I looked out on the long pastures out there, and it was, again, just an incredible sight to see the low sun turn that green brown pasture into a shining golden color with all the dew that was sparkling there in the sunlight. And the old mare was out there all by herself, and she made, as she put her muzzle down in that diamond grass blanket to feed, she made the scene look like a masterpiece of a photograph. I hope that wherever you are tonight, you know that people are praying for you who are listening to this program. We here at Deep in the Heart have prayed for you, whether you're in the free world or locked up in a prison somewhere or locked down in a prison. There are people you will never meet who have prayed for every person who hears the sound of our voice tonight, that the God of the Bible will make himself real to you in the next days and weeks and months to come, and will show you more of himself than you ever dreamed you would come to know. Did you know that God does that with a person? It's a sequential revelation. He doesn't reveal all of himself all at one time. There's just too much. No human being could possibly survive it or understand it. But little by little by little, he grows the people that he chooses to grow as he looks at that heart condition. And when that heart condition is ripe for him, he moves in. Tonight's devotional over the last few Sunday nights, we've been talking about what I've been calling the facts behind the Christian faith. And how these facts, as I came to discover them years ago, as a young ex-fighter pilot out there thinking that what I knew about God was all I needed to know. And I knew a lot about God because I had grown up in a Christian home and had it pretty well nailed down. The Bible I had studied and memorized and all of that stuff. But something was missing, and what was missing was I had no idea of how to live life. Had no idea how to really live life, how to be a man, how to be a friend, even how to be a husband. And so as I came across some new facts about the Bible that I thought I knew all about, I began to be shocked and stunned and interested enough to look further at this as a grown-up, as an adult, and as someone who wanted some facts, some scholarship, and not just a lot of Christian rhetoric and preaching about how great the Bible was. Show me is what my heart was saying, and God responded. One of the things that I learned about the Bible is what might just be considered its uniqueness. And there are so many books out there that could be recommended to you to learn more detail, books that are inches thick with data and reference materials that the inquiring mind can certainly feed upon. Dr. F.F. Bruce wrote a wonderful book called Books and Parchments, How We Got Our English Bible. And Josh McDowell, a young man who years ago had wanted to become governor of his state and was headed for law school when God revealed himself to Josh McDowell, and all of that law school mentality that he had began to turn on finding out more about the facts behind the Christian faith. And he's gone on to give his whole life to exposing the validity of the Bible, the historicity, the uniqueness of the manuscripts, how it was transmitted, and it's really an incredible and exciting adventure. But you gotta do it when your appetite is ready for it, and my appetite was not ready for it for decades until I hit the wall and realized my way was not working. And so with some degree of skepticism, I began to look at the facts behind the Christian faith. And gradually God began to show me for the first time what I had been looking for was there all the time. Take the Bible itself just as a book. So many people have it up on the shelves of their living rooms or their dining rooms. I've got 3 or 4 of them here, and they're up on the shelf. And people look at them and think, well, they're just like any other book, aren't they? Just another great book here on earth. But there is no book like this book. That's what I began to discover. It is truly unique. If you were to just look at it as a book and compare it with all the other books in the world, there are some things you would find that set it apart, that put it to the top of any stack that you wish to make when you compare and analyze one book against another. For example, this one book was written over 1,500 years. Do you know a book like that? Well, I don't know any other book. One book written over 1,500 years, but written by not one author, not 2 authors, but by over 40 different authors involved in writing this book. 1,500 years, over 40 different authors writing this book. And they come from all walks of life. Some of them were kings. Some of them were military leaders. They weren't all writers. They weren't all preachers who wrote this book. Some of them were peasants, philosophers, fishermen, tax collector, poets, musicians, statesmen, a prime minister. Moses, for example, was a political leader. David, a king, and he was also a poet and a musician. Amos was a herdsman. And then you have Joshua, who became a military general and wrote in this book and wrote part of this book. And Nehemiah was a lowly cupbearer. He was a guy that tasted the king's drinks and food before the king ate them to make sure nobody was trying to poison the king. You had a physician and a historian writing part of the Bible. And of course, you know about the fisherman, Peter, for example, and Matthew was the tax collector. So all these different people over 1,500 years wrote this book, but it was written in many different places. Do you know another book on this planet that has these qualifications up to this point? It was written by people who wrote it in the wilderness, and one wrote it in a dungeon, some in prisons, some on a hillside, some while traveling, one in exile. Some people think that John, when he was on the Isle of Patmos, wrote it while he was sentenced to live in a rock quarry or a cave of some kind on that desert island. So it was written by 40 different people from all different walks of life and occupations, writing in different locations, and it was written at different times. So when you think about writing a book, you want one person who knows something about writing and who has maybe a bent toward that and is not doing it while catching fish during the day or while being in a prison. But it was written at different times as well as different places. David wrote it in times of war. It was written in times of victory, in times of chaos, in times of defeat. It was written in times of prosperity, when things were going well. There's part of the Bible written when things are going terribly. And then when you look at the moods that these men were in as they wrote this document, some wrote when they were just had the highest joy and ecstasy in their lives, great happiness, and others wrote in great despair and sadness and brokenness. Some wrote with conviction, and some had a mood of certainty, and others wrote during confusion and doubt, insecurity. One book written by writers in all the possible moods a human being could have. And then it was written on 3 continents. Did you know that? These 40 different men, most of whom didn't know one another, wrote on 3 different continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe, and in 3 different languages: Aramaic, Greek, and Hebrew. So here we have 1,500 men, 1,500 years, 40 different men writing from many, many different occupations and lifestyles in different places at different times, in different moods, on 3 different continents, in 3 different languages. Most of the men did not know one another. They did not know that somebody was over in Africa writing part of this thing while another person was down in the Middle East writing it, in Asia somewhere, what is now Turkey, writing it. And they wrote it in different locations, including prison. And then they wrote it in different styles. Oh yeah, there's poetry in this book. There's song in this book. There's historical narrative. There's stories in it that are parables, that are allegories, that are metaphors. Part of it, the Bible, is biographical. Part of it is autobiographical in nature. All these different literary styles that these men wrote in these different languages on these different continents over this 1,500-year lifespan, which no one, most of them did not know that the others were writing it. And yet when people got this whole book together and arranged all these 66 scrolls, they saw that the content, these men wrote about every controversial subject you could possibly think of. Every subject that has any real controversy to the human being is addressed in this book. I don't think you can think of many that aren't. Marriage, divorce, homosexuality, adultery, lying, how to pay your taxes, when to pay your taxes, who to pay your taxes to, character development, parenting. Just think with me. There are so many of these kinds of things. How to know a real God from a false God. How to know a real prophet from a false prophet. How to be a husband. Well, that's pretty controversial. What about you taking you, buddy? Here, you're sitting here with me in this rocking chair. What if you went out and found 40 people, and you got them in a room, and you assigned them one controversial subject to write about. Everybody go home, all 40 of you, and write a paper on just one of these controversial subjects. Let's say pick divorce and remarriage. When and how you can do that. And I want all 40 of you to bring your papers back next week, and let's compare them. Do you think that we'd have all 40 come back with the same opinion about remarriage and divorce? Do you think they would all come back with the same opinion about any of these controversial subjects? And yet when people got all these 66 books together, they found that these writers agree on all these controversial subjects. There is a systematic harmony and an incredible degree of harmony in the opinions of all these people on these controversial subjects. How is this possible in a document that was written over 1,500 years by over 40 different people on many controversial subjects in many times, places, moods, in 3 different languages on 3 different continents? And yet, my friend, there's something even more stunning than this. And this is what really got me. These scrolls, when you read from Genesis to Revelation, you see that this is one story. It describes one God, one plan for humanity's redemption, and it predicts one Redeemer. The description of this God is consistent throughout, and throughout all these 66 books, there is one Redeemer predicted, one Redeemer described, one Redeemer prophetically announced to the world. And it tells a single unfolding story of God's redemption and his plan to redeem human beings. The leading character throughout this whole Bible is Jesus Christ. The Old Testament lays the foundation for Christ. Those historical books that are in the Old Testament, Josh McDowell says, prepare Christ, is the preparation for Christ. And I remember he said that the prophecies produce the expectation of Christ. And of course, in the New Testament, we have the manifestation of Jesus Christ. From cover to cover, the Bible is Christocentric. That's what the philosophers say, the Christocentric. Hello, Cloudy. Cloudy Dawn just came up on the porch here. That's great. We're still waiting for Shelley to come. The whole Bible, my friend, is Christocentric. And so my question that I ended up with was, wouldn't any thinking man or woman at least want to read a book with these qualifications? My friend, I'm asking you right here, right now, wouldn't any thinking man or woman at least want to read a book with these qualifications? Thank you tonight, Royal Disposal, for sponsoring our program. One of Houston's largest independently owned trash haulers. As you've heard me say many times, these are my favorite garbologists. And if you serve on the board of a planned community, call royaldisposal.com. Our address is P.O. Box 991, Fulshear, Texas, 77441. Give us your mailing address and your email address, please. Our website is heartoftexasfoundation.org. Click on radio. We love you all. Thank you for coming up to Rainbow Cabin and sitting a spell with me. The count has cleared. We can go to our bunks now. See you next Sunday night at 8 o'clock p.m. on Houston's KKHT The Word, 100.7. Grove Norwood from the heart of Texas saying, good night, sleep well.
Now there ain't no room for the hopeless sinner who's hard on mankind just to save his own. Have pity on those whose chances are thinner, 'cause there's no hiding place from the kingdom stone. Oh, people get ready, there's a train coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hit these just that.